The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars episode 109.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Just a quick reminder to please share the podcast on Twitter or Facebook and leave us a review, definitely, because that can let us know how we're doing first and foremost. And we always want to hear what you guys are thinking about the show. But also it gets us seen by more people because it kind of juices some of those algorithms and allows people to find the show easier. So please, if you have time, please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing. And so today we are discussing Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett, titled The Return of the Mandalorian. So not at all a big episode or anything. And so joining me tonight on the panel is, first of all, we have Old Ben himself, Mike Creevy.
I wanted to say, why do I feel like you're going to be the death of me? There's an episode 2 line for you. Well, glad to be here.
Second this evening is the Bendu, the Balance, Angela Ciolana.
Yes, here I am. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
And third and finally, we have Mudhorn, Andrew Hermes.
Good to be here. Should be just another filler episode that we're going to discuss.
That's right. That's right.
Special.
Nothing big, but it was pointed out to me, and this is kind of just sort of comical that, this is the first time that I've been able to be on the show since we've been starting to talk about Boba Fett. So it's just been kind of a crazy month for me. So, on the first episode that I am able to be the host for the Book of Boba Fett doesn't appear in the episode at all. So,
a tad bit ironic.
Right. So, but before we get into all of that, Mike, you had a couple fun ham solo moments this week, didn't you?
Yeah. The standard one, I guess, was when I was getting lunch meat again, which for some reason hadn't happened in a while. I got it prepared this time for Paz Vizsla, which was cool, and I did look it up right before I entered it because I thought it was spelled differently than it ended up being. So I have that one here, appropriate for this episode. It's a Vizsla. That ZS kind of threw me off a little bit. So, yes. And then that same day went out for a coffee and just on a whim put it in for Ben, which is a little, it's not like having, someone there actually say coffee for the Pike Syndicate, which I regret that I wasn't that courageous, but maybe next time we'll see.
Just make sure there are no law enforcement officers.
I know that's a little tricky. That one's a little dangerous.
Cool. So let's jump into the episode then. And there's definitely a lot to talk about. So first of all, of course, what did you guys think of this episode?
I'll keep my remarks short. I tweeted that I could not human. I was so shook. Afterwards, I just kind of sat on the couch and just stared and said, wow, oh my gosh. And my husband was like, I don't understand. Why are you so freaked out? So it probably took me a good 15 minutes solid to where I could actually formulate sentences enough to sort of explain why I was geeking out. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I agree. It was great. And what was impressive about the episode was I think we were all expecting, Din to show up at some point, because, even during production of this season of Book of Boba Fett, it was referred to a lot as like Mandalorian season 2.5. And it would have been, I think, surprising not to be so long without Mando waiting for season 3. I think we were all expecting him to show up at some point, and then obviously the teaser in episode 4 left little room for interpretation, that we were getting him. And in very Star Wars, Favreau, Filoni fashion, we see him right away. It's like the Ahsoka episode. They didn't waste any time. The reveal was pretty instant and pretty dramatic. We meet him in a meat locker, and he's just slicing dudes up with the darksaber. Having a lot of trouble along the way, obviously. I know we'll get into that, but what impressed me, obviously, is all the connections to the obvious connections to episode 1, the prequels, and how no one could have possibly predicted this sort of thing. Like, we didn't know what to expect. I'm surprised on how they continue to surprise us with how impressive and how clever they use, past Star Wars lore and tie it into this character that has no backstory. Since it was a 100% Mando episode, we could treat this literally as, Mando season 2.5. And obviously there is a tie-in. There is a reason why we're here. So it didn't feel cheap, but it was nice to be with, I didn't realize how much we missed Din until we got to spend another hour with him. And was surprised with the big Grogu tease too. Didn't know when we would even get a mention or a hint at maybe when we might see him again. So, a lot of great surprises, and just, nostalgia overload with the episode 1 tie-ins, and just phenomenal hour of television, and my favorite episode of the season. I know it's maybe not fair to Boba Fett as a character, but that's just how much we're invested in this one. So it blew my expectations away for sure.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add. I just echo what you guys have been saying. I would just kind of throw in there that the phrase that came to my mind, the little like slogan almost for this, because everyone keeps talking about all the connections it makes. I think if this episode is a lore hub, was what I kept calling it. It's kind of like this, like the Mos Eisley cantina of Star Wars lore itself in this show, as far as just so many, again, like, connections to the movies, to the even there was at least one connection to the sequel trilogy, which we'll get to later. If I'm sure you guys probably caught it, of course, but just a passing reference at least. But it really connected pretty much everything, from movies to the animated series, but especially, like we said before too, it's such a very interesting time for this like prequel nostalgia, and to have it done so well, where like we've all got our moments, or there's cringeworthy moments in the prequels, of course. There's a couple of cringeworthy moments in the original trilogy, dare I say.
Sure.
But I love them.
How dare
I
you?
love them, dude. Oh my gosh, yeah. But when you go back and you watch it as a purist, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a little lame, but I love it, But this was just so wonderful for all of that. For those who sometimes, I think, throw out the phrase fan service as like an insult, which I'm like, no, the more of it, the merrier. For
I'm a fan. I like being served.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
Why do you? I love this franchise. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and personally, I'm excited for where we're gonna go here tonight. Hopefully, with some theories. I want to see your guys' thoughts, or just think about this. Like, where is this headed? In a couple different ways. I don't even know how we'll get through it all, but for me, I just want to throw out that I think it's all about the darksaber now. Like, I think, like, for as much as Din, become like really front and center in this episode, I feel like Yes, indeed. But that Darksaber is not just, I mean, that's a character. Mm-hmm. This is kind of how I'm looking at it. And I'm excited for what its role, the way they have sort of expanded its story, and that this is the book of Boba Fett. And so that's going to get into some of it later. I'm excited to talk about.
So I'm surprised that none of you used the phrase, so I'm going to use it for impressions of this episode. It's so wizard.
Yes.
Yeah. We were waiting to
So since you guys didn't take it, I will take it. And I mean that in the best possible way. Even when Din said it in the episode, it felt awkward, but it also felt right.
Yep.
And so yeah, so my thoughts on this episode are I could echo everything that you guys are saying. I am one of those who really bonded with Star Wars with the original or with the prequel trilogy. So I have very fond memories of, the pod racer scene and the Naboo starfighter and all of those. So yeah, Angela, I'm very happy to be serviced as a fan in that sense. But I do like it when it fits. I don't want it to be shoehorned in by any means, but when it fits and it subverted expectations, like that was not where I expected, the back half of this episode to go. In fact, this isn't how I expected the first half of the episode to go either.
No.
Which I really appreciate in storytelling, because we all sort of most every kind of story out there has already been told, and we already kind of know the gist of kind of the generic story. So when they can subvert expectations, I think that is a very awesome way to bring excitement, to bring new things to the story, to keep us entertained, since this is entertainment, but also to highlight even deeper themes that were going on. So this episode was really, really fantastic. I also feel that since I haven't been on the first 4 episodes that you guys were on, I did want to share a little bit of my kind of feelings with the Book of Boba Fett. And I feel like I feel somewhat defensive when I talk about this, because I've appreciated where they've gone with Boba Fett. It's again one of those things that I didn't expect them to go this way at all. Mm-hmm. From his time with the Tusken Raiders, and even kind of becoming a honorable crime lord, if you will. That's so contrary to where his character went in Legends, and kind of what everyone kind of has this idea of on who Boba Fett is. But for me, it's been fun to kind of just follow along in that story and see where he's going, and let the character develop in a way that's fitting for this story. And so I kind of feel like I have to be defensive, because there's a lot of people out there I know that are very not so much of a fan of where Boba Fett's going in these episodes, because they have a certain expectation of who he is, and this isn't fitting that. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage all the listeners to let Boba Fett, give him a chance, give this whole thing a chance, because I'm always surprised and blown away by what Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing. So
live and let Fett.
Live and let Fett, yes.
And I figure if we come back to that theme closer to the end, maybe, or whatever, just as we wrap up, I'm sure that, because I think there's some really exciting potential for that specific, arc,
mm-hmm.
Because none of this is by mistake. That's what's happening here.
Right. Yeah. I did want to mention, I don't know if this is where you were going or not, and we can save it for the later part of the discussion too, but are any of you expecting Maul to show up?
I wasn't.
Not particularly, no.
No, because I think he's canonically dead at this point, I think.
Do we know that? He was the leader of Crimson Dawn in Solo. Different crime syndicate.
Yeah.
Right. But Obi-Wan took him out.
Nope, you guys are right. Thank you for clarifying that. I kept thinking like maybe we'll see him.
is born again. Third time. Second time.
No, I forgot the battle between Ben Kenobi and him in Rebels.
Yeah. And the armorer does that, like her helmet. The only other Mandalorians, to my knowledge, that have had horns on their helmet were the ones, they sometimes call them Maul-Delorians, but the ones, that were loyal to him when he was Mandalore. So I am thinking that her somehow this next generation Death Watch thing, like I think there's more to her that we're gonna see too.
So maybe I'll rephrase. Maybe we'll see Kira. Or the Crimson Dawn. I mean, I keep expecting Crimson Dawn to show up in some form.
I've been expecting Kira, maybe, for sure.
So, okay, maybe that's what I
know.
They
supposedly took it on the chin with Solo's numbers and stuff, but like it's got its place, and I enjoy it, and I think it fits into this so well. I think that it's good for the lore overall to do that.
There's the hashtag make Solo 2 happen on Twitter. And I think instead of a movie, I think the fan base is, expecting it to turn into a Disney Plus series, or because there is a Lando series coming too,
or be referenced, right?
Yeah, there's definitely the I think there's the desire for it. I would be all on board for that kind of a show too.
Yeah.
But to get back to Boba Fett and this chapter, without getting too far into theories, so this whole episode was essentially a Mandalorian episode. It's Andrew, I think you made that pretty clear. Mandalorian season 2.5. It surprised me that Boba Fett wasn't in it at all. And it makes sense because Din is coming in and merging into the story of Boba Fett. So we kind of need to know where he's been at. And so this episode definitely kind of lays out where he's been at and some points out some interesting things. So he starts out on this very interesting ring world. It's got a name. I guess it's called Glavis or Glavis. I'm not entirely sure, at least according to Wikipedia. And he's going there, and the whole thing starts off with he's in this butcher shop collecting a bounty from on a Tatooinian, and the poor guy decided that he didn't want to be taken alive, so we have that fight scene, and I think
he goes in cold,
the slaughtering.
Yeah.
It's always one of the things I keep wanting to look at Din as this hero, and and yet he's not exactly the moral upright hero that maybe Luke Skywalker is or something, but he's kind of the when you see him kind of slaughter these Tatooinians, it kind of made me cringe just a little bit, but I
was laughing because hunter. It's like I accidentally drilled my thumb on accident one time working on like mounting a doorknob and messing up with the tool I was using, and I got so mad and I threw something or said something I shouldn't have said, but he slices a dude in half when he hurts himself with the tool he's using. It's like, okay, look, tougher life, fair enough. I wasn't expecting that though. That was pretty bold.
I was initially expecting that to be on Tatooine, because aren't Tatooinians 1/3 of the factions in Mos Espa?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I initially thought Tatooine, and then you come to realize that it's not, and the Darksaber does play a role there too. That Mando or Din is not entirely adept at using the Darksaber. Just a couple points about the ring world. It could be a reference to there's a 1970 science fiction novel called Ring World by Larry Niven. I have not read that, but that's kind of the general consensus that could be a reference to that. There's also the more immediate reference to the Halo Xbox universe ring world kind of thing.
It even had a little bit of an Interstellar, at the end when they're on that colony thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not, I don't think it's a ring, but it's neat to play with your mind with the gravitational concept, right? Because it would, in theory, you can kind of be like, well, I was explaining to my sister and I were watching it, and she's much younger than me, but I was telling her, I was like, when you think about it, it's kind of like the inverse of like how Earth works, just on a much smaller scale, right? Like, if you just walk far enough, you disappear over the curve, right?
Yep.
It was like, it's just imagine it's like, that's so cool to see that though.
Well, and at least physically, in a physics realm, it would make sense too that if it was spinning, you'd have that, the centripetal acceleration, and I mean, it would mimic gravity. I guess theoretically, we've never built one of these things, but
it looks so weird. But like, I don't think you'd ever get used to it.
Yeah. But it was. I mean, it fits in the Star Wars universe. Like they have the Death Star, or I mean, all these other huge space stations and such. It totally fit. It was really cool to see, because I've always enjoyed that kind of a space station, because I'm a Halo fan myself.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll get more of that going into the future, because that's the first time it's showed up at all in Star Wars. And we have Din taking the bounty back to whoever his client was, and I just wanted to point out that there's the elevator scene at this point, which was phenomenal.
Yes.
And Mike, I wondered if that was your connection to the sequel trilogy.
No,
okay. I didn't even think of that.
So
mine's something Pelly mentions later.
Okay, we'll get to it. But the alien species that is the awkward one in the elevator with Din is also an alien species that is seen on Canto Bight.
Okay, that does ring a bell now. That was I just love that character is like, that's us in this episode, right? Like, just like, like, nope, nothing. I'm just.
I was wondering if he has special head bags, because how is it not dripping or gushing, or not to be weird, but
it may be cauterized.
Like, since it was the Darksaber, I would sort of assume cauterization, but or he just found a bag in the butcher shop and just used it.
Yeah, special.
They're special butcher bags. Yeah.
There's part of that guy's still, he's totally like, please be cabbage. Like, there's just something in him that's still like hoping, but it's not.
And props to Chris Bartlett, who does he's the actor who did that character.
Oh, was that him?
And he's also the teacher droid in Mandalorian season 2, and I'm blanking on is it Zero, or is it I'm forgetting the droid.
I think didn't he do the body work for Zero? I think
he did the voice,
but not the voice. The voice was a comedian. I forget his name. Some English comedian, I think. But
so yeah, I'd have to maybe look that up. But either way, he's been doing a lot of work for these shows, and so he was the actor who did that. We encounter the client that he's working for, and what I did appreciate about this whole scene was it's basically the motivation behind why Din is bounty hunting again. Because I sort of initially assumed, like, okay, he's gone back to his old life, and this is his old life, but really what he's doing is he's trying to get information about where his covert is. Mm-hmm. And he's not interested in getting another bounty, because he's even offered another bounty there, but rather he's really just concerned about getting information on trying to get back to his covert. And he is able to find the covert through the information that he gets from the client. And this is what takes up quite a bit of the first kind of half of the episode, which was really fascinating, because he's able to find the armorer and Paz Vizsla. What did you guys think about this? Did you think they both survived the events of season 1?
I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. But I was very happy to see it. And yeah, well, as far as the armor, we had seen her before she was alive, or she seemed to be she was alive and she was fighting in the tunnels or the covert where they were before on Navarro. So she seemed to be able to handle herself well against fake stormtroopers or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a total surprise, but it was definitely welcome. And obviously with Paz Vizsla being a Vizsla, that made things a little more interesting now that the Darksaber was in the mix.
Yeah. Which is clearly exactly where they went with this. And this is where we get some more insight into the lore and the history of the Darksaber, even though we mostly already kind of knew this, but it was interesting because Din shows up and he gets some Bacta spray on his wound on his leg, and he is able to show the Darksaber to the armorer who knows actually quite a bit about the history. And we get kind of her perspective on what happened. And so this is really interesting because she knows, that the Darksaber, if it's won by creed in battle, it can have the person who wields it be the leader of all Mandalore. And but she makes the point that if it's not won by combat and it falls into the hands of the undeserving, she says that it will be a curse unto the nation, and that Mandalore will be laid waste and its people scattered to the four winds. And so that was interesting because that's basically her take on what happened with Bo-Katan, who we know in Rebels that she got the Darksaber, but she was gifted it by Sabine rather than winning it in combat. And then we're sort of starting to piece together what happened is that, she loses the leadership of Mandalore, and we have the Great Purge and the Night of 1,000 Tears, and the Mandalorians are indeed scattered to the four winds. And that's kind of her take on what happened with Bo-Katan.
And I think we were all kind of assuming that the clan or the covert was the remnants of the Concordan group. Mm-hmm. But I think, I don't think we actually ever got like confirmation on screen. So now hearing her say that their sect was on Concordia, we got that confirmation basically that they were Death Watch.
Right. Yeah, we've kind of assumed it, but that was pretty clear. I was sort of surprised, I think. Well, maybe not surprised, but I actually didn't expect Din to still have the Darksaber at this point. I sort of expected him and Bo-Katan to have some sort of a reckoning before we saw what happened to Din afterwards. So I don't know. I guess I suspect that that's still coming in probably season 3 of The Mandalorian. But
yeah,
well, it's weird to me. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that I was surprised that he actually wanted it. Like,
yeah,
that he was willing to fight to keep it.
Yeah, because he kept, trying to do everything to give it back. No, I yield. Here you go. But see, I'm still confused about that because I wonder if she's feeling guilty in the wake of the purge. No doubt being aware of, at least, probably not agreeing maybe at first, but being aware of that, prophecy, whoever's giving these prophecies. But that, I love that kind of thing. It is said, it has been foretold. I'm like, who's doing this? Like Frank told me last week. Like, who's Frank? No, but so there's clearly some kind of culture of this, these prophecies, whether you accept them or not. And I don't know, the way she told that story, and I love how dispassionate Emily Swallow is with that, right? The whole she's just like, Bo-Katan is a cautionary tale. It's like, okay, but my point being, like, Bo-Katan no doubt is aware at least that there's this notion out there that the whole thing is her fault because of a curse, because she wielded the Darksaber unworthily. So I wonder if is that enough? Like, is that alone sort of enough to kind of make sense of her reaction at the end of season 2? Like, I'm not going to take it back twice. Like, I will win this thing back the way it's supposed to be won. I wonder, I feel like that would be satisfactory enough, kind of not retconning it, but retroactively sort of in my mind. But it's interesting to me, though, that like he didn't, we know, like, you don't have to kill someone to get it. You have to defeat them, and if Mando had quit instead of like really getting up and stabbing Paz some more, like really fighting it through a little bit more, I mean, it would have been Paz's there. So, yeah, why wouldn't they just have like, okay, let's have a fight and bloody my nose and then you win it? Like, then it's official. So definitely, it's not as extreme as they could have made it, right? Like, you have to kill the person to take it back. If that was the rule, I feel like there'd be a lot more like, oh, okay, that's why it's more awkward or more challenging. So I'm still wondering about that. I'm sure we'll see where they're going with it.
Well, and even the Armorer and Paz Vizsla don't think that killing is necessary for that to be won, because even Paz is like disappointed that Din didn't kill Moff Gideon, but that didn't negate his ownership of the Darksaber for him.
Right.
So,
and they let him leave with it, but
right.
That was a little surprising too.
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't, Din and Bo-Katan didn't have a reckoning right there, post credits of season 2, but yeah, we'll see where that goes. And I mean,
I'm sorry, can I just throw one more funny thing? Because I'm just thinking, because it was so dramatic, how season 2 ended, and it is funny to imagine like what happens right after Luke leaves, and they're all standing there and Din's helmet's off. Right. I almost imagine this like Avengers like shawarma. I just want to get some shawarma. Like I don't know what it is, but I hear it's great. Like they're all like, do they go somewhere and eat? Down to the dining hall in the Star Destroyer or the cruiser? Like where? It's just funny to imagine that, because that was. There were some things that needed to happen before they all split, and they all came in the same ship.
Right.
So it's like, kind of awkward.
Well, and I want to point out too that, I mean, so we're also now seeing that whole situation through the eyes of the Armorer and Paz Vizsla, who we've already talked about how they're kind of they're on the extreme, and they're not mainstream Mandalorian. And I mean, I think it's easy to kind of like fall into their point of view and say, oh yeah, well that's Bo-Katan, didn't win the Darksaber by combat, and that's an explanation for what happened. And I'm nervous though to give that entirely like that is the answer, because because that falls into the realm then of superstition and like giving too much kind of spiritual power to the Darksaber, when I guess coming at it from kind of a more balanced perspective, I don't think it quite has that power, even if it was there's the prophecies and everything, and and that's all part of it. I still I think fall in Bo-Katan's kind of camp, if you will, in that when she received the Darksaber as a gift from Sabine, she wasn't concerned about the fact that she didn't win it by combat. She was taking it to lead Mandalore. And then I think I'm of the opinion that then it was just a series of unfortunate events and the Empire, crushing Mandalore, that's the reason why it was destroyed, not Bo-Katan's unworthiness. Although
I think that's why they emphasize the whole like have you taken off your mask thing. It's like they're really showing that these are like they're emphasizing that these are like cult-like Mandalorians. Mm-hmm. Like they adhere to this specific code, like this specific sect of Mandalorians, and obviously that was something that Din struggled with, and you see. Obviously, because of, a couple times we see Din take his mask off. And then especially the last time for Grogu, I think he's still living in that gray area of whether like how much of this Mandalorian, tradition and, belief system does he buy into? And I think that, that's probably part of the reason why he's keeping the Darksaber, or motivating himself to keep it and not let it go so quickly, is that he's still trying to figure out, well, if I'm not the right person, I'm not so sure that this person or that person might be the right person, because, maybe they're just a crazy ideologue, or, someone who's like Bo-Katan, who's just, vengeful. And so, yeah, I think he has a lot of reasons to keep it now. And I think he's thinking about that. And then obviously that's probably going to be a big plot point and storyline wise for Mandalorian season 3. But yeah, and before we jump to the next part of the episode, the whole flashback to the siege of Mandalore, that was totally Terminator 2 Judgment Day, like rip off, or influence.
Yeah.
Like it was totally like I would love to see like a behind the scenes interview with Bryce Dallas Howard, to hear her say that she's like, yeah, this is totally Terminator influenced. Like it was straight out of that movie. And it was really cool. I mean, it was very brief scenes, very, very brief flashback, but it looked really cool.
I think that's
Did you guys, I think, I was just going to say this is the second show in a row for SQPN. I've mentioned the pitch meeting guy, but there's the one where he says something, goes like, it'll be like an homage. And the producer's like, what's an homage? He goes, that's where you hit Control-C on your computer and then Control. No, but that was totally the vibe I was getting off it. Yeah. Creepy.
Yeah. I was going to ask about Din's faith kind of journey because, he was, I guess, a child in a different tradition, and then he was adopted by this particular tradition, and he was raised with these creeds and rituals and so forth. But then with his journey with Grogu, we saw that his kind of faith sort of was shaken in a way because he made a decision to go against the faith that he was raised in to a certain extent. And now, that they have basically, just kind of cast him aside and called him an apostate. And even though he was like, well, how can I atone? Yeah, I think he's still kind of figuring things out because I don't think he regrets taking his helmet off. And just like you were saying, Andrew, he has these reasons probably for keeping the Darksaber himself and wanting to keep it rather than give it to one of the other kind of parties that he's been encountering. So I just find it interesting just from like a faith perspective to consider like, what he's going through, because a lot of people go through that in their life, for one reason or another. And usually it's something just very small in the grand scheme of things that sort of makes you question, what you've been raised with or whatever. So.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of comes to my mind is, and that's why one of the things that I love about being Catholic is that we encourage the asking of the question of why. Like, why do we believe, X, Y, or Z about the faith? And there's always a rational explanation, or there's history or tradition, or even going back to scripture. But it's never, the faith is never presented as you have to accept this, no questions asked. And with the covert here, the children of the Watch, one of the things like with the have you ever removed your helmet? There's not really a good explanation of why that's so necessary not to remove their helmets.
An explanation.
Do you? Okay.
Possibly. Okay, so this is my theory.
Okay.
And it's related to like world religions. So when he asks how he can atone, the armorer says that the only way that you could be redeemed is by going to the living waters under the mines of Moria, Mandalore. Wrong podcast. But she says living waters, and that reminded me of the Jewish tradition of the ritual bath, the mikveh. And so that you go through that's still actually used by Jews nowadays, or Orthodox Jews, especially in regards to like pregnancy or a woman's cycle today. But I've actually heard a Jewish Orthodox person like describe the reason behind the reason for taking a ritualistic bath. We know that it's because you're ritualistically unclean, but he explained that the reason you become ritualistically unclean is because you have some kind of encounter with something that's related to death. So like blood or like a dead body or something like that. And so when you think about the Mandalorians, then if you remove your helmet, there's a greater chance that you will die. And when they talk about the way in this particular episode, they talk about how the way means loyalty and solidarity. So when you put those things together, I think you can kind of understand like how they would get to the point of you have to keep your helmet on, especially if they started off as a very small group and you wanted to continue to, survive the group, the Children of the Watch. So that's kind of my theory right now.
That is a very very good way to explain it. I'm gonna push back a little bit, at least because this is how I think probably Din is processing that, because I think you make some really good points. If you remove your helmet, you are vulnerable, and it puts you in closer proximity of death for sure. But the covert, their loyalty and solidarity are key aspects of the creed. And I would argue that you can't fully have that solidarity, that relationship with the mask on. And we see Din have to struggle with that, in the first season when he's, and I am blanking on the lady's name when they're on the planet, and he's helping them. It's the other
Bryce Dallas Howard episode.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is. Yeah, they're he's helping them, train them to fight against the Tatooinians. Also, are in that episode. Maybe Bryce must
it's all coming together,
like the Tatooinians. But and the lady that he's interacting with, she wants to remove his helmet, and he doesn't let her. But he continues to struggle with that, and then ultimately removes his helmet to save Grogu. But then in the finale, he removes his helmet when there is no threat in order to bond with Grogu.
Right.
So, I would kind of push back against that the helmet is actually a barrier to authentic solidarity. And I think maybe that's what Din is struggling with, and why, I don't think that he regretted what he did at all. I think he doesn't want to be kind of cast out, and is definitely willing to go through a redemption process if it were possible. And it still may be possible. We know that Mandalore was destroyed, but there still might be a way for him to kind of be redeemed in their eyes, or he's gonna find this kind of third way between the Armorer and Paz's Children of the Watch group and Bo-Katan. So he's gonna kind of unite in a third option. Yeah, I think that's definitely where season 3 is going.
Can I just add one more funny thing? Well, I found it funny. So when the Armorer, she says that there are like tales of a mythosaur like rising up for the new, whatever of age of Mandalore or something. And then she goes, sadly, it only exists in legends. And I was like, yes, it only exists in legends.
Yeah. I
didn't think that was necessarily as on the nose as in the new Matrix movie, where they're just flat out are like, we're being forced to make a 4th installment of something that had a trilogy. And I'm like, are they allowed to do this in the plot of this movie? I was like, yikes.
That Matrix movie was
I'm pulling my collar back in the theater. Like, ouch. That's like, it's like when friends of yours who used to date are having a passive aggressive fight in your presence, and you're like, I don't want to be here for this right now, man. That's like,
yeah. So a couple other things to just highlight about those scenes. We get a little bit of story on what happens with Moff Gideon, in that he was sent to the New Republic for interrogation, and I put in my notes that means he will be back.
Yes.
I mean, he didn't go off to be executed, so and I think even the actor has said he's going to be back in future seasons. We also get, before Din is cast out and called an apostate, we have some really cool scenes that happen, because he's got the Beskar spear that he got, and And Beskar is apparently meant for armor, not weapons, which I thought that was an interesting comment too, because weapons are such a key aspect of Mandalorian religion. But obviously Beskar has a very highly it's highly prized, and
it's like sacred.
Right. Yep. So they use it for armor instead of weapons. And Din has the armor forge that spear into a gift for Grogu, which was really, really touching. I've seen memes on the internet already of like putting Grogu in like chainmail. So that's kind of what I'm expecting it is, because that's sort of what they imply that it might be.
Mithril.
Exactly.
Grogu even rhymes with Frodo, sort of. So,
and back on the Secrets of Lord of the Rings podcast.
Yes.
And even the cloth that it was wrapped in, we see kind of later that it's even shaped like Grogu. So
that was so fun.
That was cute.
Very, very, very touching moments. We also get the battle between Paz and Din, which was again sort of, it didn't go where I expected, and then I actually kind of expected Paz to totally overpower Din. But there's an interesting thing there of just the weight of the Darksaber, and that totally plays a role, because even as Din is training with the armorer, she keeps telling him to not fight against the blade. And we see an echo of that too when Kanan is trying to train Sabine in wielding the Darksaber and fighting with the Darksaber. So the Darksaber is obviously quite a bit heavier and more unwieldy than you might think.
Well, it's a little there's maybe a little bit, if you pick it apart too much as far as like overall Star Wars lore, there's some inconsistency with this, but because like when Luke first ignites Anakin's lightsaber in A New Hope, like he's just kind of like waving around, no big deal. But there, a couple people have pointed out that Luke is very sort of vocally had this vision, this notion, and kind of his overall guidance, I guess, for the actors, that he really did want him to hold it with two hands. He said it's like this is this weapon that's like just power and light and energy, and we want to get that across, this visual of like these being these heavy, like almost broadsword type weapons, and that does hold up for, I think, more in the old or the original trilogy. I mean, everyone's just whipping them all over the place in the prequels, which is awesome, yes. But yeah, so it's not like a perfect kind of thing, but I wonder if that, in my mind, that might lend itself to it, because also the people you see with them through most of Star Wars are Jedi who have a significant amount of training and force sensitivity, and Mando's just a dude, So there's this idea of like, I like the kind of awkward, and Paz too, like the awkwardness of this weapon that in a sense doesn't really belong in their world. Like the mere existence of it is kind of strange, right, and unique, obviously because of the Mandalorian's tradition of being not exactly friendly with the Jedi, so that's just a really cool area to explore anything about that, I think.
Well, and the original Mandalorian who forged it, Tarviza?
Or Tar, something like that.
Tarre, I think is how you spell it. But he was a Jedi and Mandalorian, so he would have had the training and the force sensitivity and everything to wield it in a perhaps more elegant manner than our contemporaries.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. Well,
for his thighs' sake.
Well, it's a good thing that they have Beskar armor, but apparently, he needs better thigh plates with his armor.
And yet Yoda never cut his ear off.
Very true.
Like how?
Yeah, so even at the end of that battle, Din is able to, and that was the key point, is once Paz was able to pick up the Darksaber, and once he tried to use it against Din was able to defeat him with his dexterity and agility. And so he was still able to win the battle and then keep the Darksaber. And then of course that's at the point when we find out that he's been excommunicated from the covert, and so Din just leaves. So I kind of expect we'll see the armor and pause again, but probably not for a while. But he leaves, and I actually had no idea where he was going. But we have this really fun scene of Din going
Very
on a commercial
relatable
flight.
scene.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Going on a commercial flight to Tatooine. But of course he sets off all the metal detectors and the weapons detectors and has to check all of his weapons.
I know everything that's in here.
I know.
What was your guys' favorite? Because mine was totally
weapon?
mine was totally like the what's it called? Like the cord. I can't think of the name of it now that like when he ties him up with
cable.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, the cable. That's it. You know, he's just like, it's just so, dumping it out in a little spool. Like that was so great. I don't know.
I was surprised that it made it to Tatooine and didn't get lost.
Yeah, I thought something was going wrong.
Route. But then poor Din. I mean, you could feel the awkwardness of him just sitting there in the window seat. And then the Rhodian kid looking at him over the seat in front of him, and just yeah, very, very relatable, I think, to all of us.
And I think that was important for this episode, that there was slice of life kind of, so we get a sense of how normal people live now after the Empire and everything. And I guess they maybe they converted some of these really large starships into just enormous commercial flight vehicles. So yeah, it was really, really cool. I really liked it. Besides just the comedy and everything, it kind of put Din in, I guess, it took him outside of his arena, of being the bounty hunter and being in charge, and just to kind of see him be relatable, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's important too, like you said, to just kind of understand how the average person is living in this galaxy, because the average person is more than likely not going to be able to own their own spaceship. And so the commercial flight is, way more common than we mentally think of, because all the heroes and everything have their own ship, or the Millennium Falcon or whatever. And so this was fun to just, see what your typical Rhodian family is going to go on vacation to the sands of Tatooine, I guess. So he goes to Tatooine, and we have the wonderful second half of this episode with Peli, who I was surprised. I didn't think that she was coming back. And she was such a joy to have in this part of the episode. Apparently, she had sent Din a message saying that she had found a replacement for his Razor Crest, but wasn't a Razor Crest replacement. It was a replacement for it, but wasn't an actual Razor Crest like he was expecting. And so we get some really cool Easter eggs and references galore here, so we've got we see at least kind of the shadow of a Womp Rat on screen for the first time.
Huge.
Yeah.
So scary.
I think at one point Luke mentions that they can get up to 2 meters in length. So yeah, they're not rats. They're rodents of unusual size.
Yes.
Another Secrets of podcast available
We're jumping all over that.
SQPN.
It's a lore hub. I didn't just say even in Star Wars. No.
But even in that scene, we've got a little BD droid, and I've started to play the game, but I haven't actually really gotten too much into it. But that droid was first introduced in the video game Jedi Fallen Order. So. Yep, another connection. It's not the same droid, but it's the same kind of droid. And Peli's comments are just they are just too good. She asks where his unlikely companion is, and then makes the reference that she would have never have given him up because she could have made a ton of money on a petting zoo.
Yeah.
Which I really want to see that happen at Galaxy's Edge, because I would so be there. But then, of course, the star of the second half is the replacement for the Razor Crest, the N1 starfighter from Naboo. And Mike is
holding mine up for the camera.
Right.
From one of the, I can't go to Target or Walmart without at least perusing the aisle. You know, usually all the pegs are empty, but once in a while you get a gem.
Mm-hmm. So I imagine you guys were just as surprised that this was the replacement ship as I was.
Oh yeah.
I did hear somewhere along the line. I heard a rumor, no details, but just a rumor that we'd see this kind of ship, and I didn't really give it much thought, but I like seeing it under the tarp when she yanks it off, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, and I love the retro vibe, right? Like the classic that's just all beat up and like 40 years old, and it was just so well done.
Yeah, my initial reaction was, I think, very comparable to Din's, was like, how is this ship gonna work? Like, if he's a bounty hunter, right, he's got really no storage to bring people back with or anything, except for the droid kind of pod.
I guess you can fit a head in there.
Well, I think we all know who that's really for.
It's right. Yeah, it's the perfect little bubble for Grogu. I think it's clearly gonna probably go that way. Maybe this is just gonna be his cruising ship, and he'll find another gunship somewhere where he can use for his actual work, but. You know, so,
can he FedEx? Like, I mean, can he cryogenically freeze people and carbon freeze them and send them like UPS or something? I don't know how that works.
So it's funny that you sort of made reference to shipping companies, because so they start to rebuild the Naboo starfighter, and I'm calling the Jawas the Outer Rim version of Amazon.
Yes,
seriously.
That's right.
They probably don't do organic parts like you were referencing, but you just give them your wish list and they're gonna get it for you.
Yes.
I love how Pelly has dated Jawa, and she's like so proud of that. She's got all this inside knowledge now. But yeah, that's when you know she's a local girl for sure. Like she's so local that she's dated a Jawa.
Yeah. She's never been off world. She says that.
But what was her little line too? She says something to the one like, "Oh, I'm working on me right now." Like,
oh my gosh!
Like he was asking about it.
And see, that's the kind of thing you get when you get like a really good female director, because I feel like that was just probably just thrown in. Like that's something that a woman would write in, not a guy.
It also explains how she learned to speak Jawa. Or at least it's part of the whole thing is So yeah, the Jawas were definitely one of my favorite aspects of this. Other kind of random things to note. One of the other reasons that this ship is going to appeal to Din is because it's pre-Empire, so it's off the grid. There was a reference to it can jump to hyperspace without a docking ring. And so that was kind of a fun reference to some of the ships that you see in episode 2 and 3. I think some of them are in 3, but like the Jedi starfighters needed that docking ring to jump to hyperspace. We've got I had to write it down. Like some of the verbiage that they used was so technical and so Star Wars. And I'm sure like it had, I didn't even try to decipher what they were saying, but like you just, you go with it. That's, they know what they're talking about. It's ship stuff. But at one point they need a cryogenic density combustion booster. And did you guys recognize that piece of equipment?
I the cryogenic word was, familiar, but not the part.
So the part, it's like that big pole. It's the same thing that Luke, Han, and Leia were using in the trash compactor in episode 4
when it was closing in.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. So yeah, there's so many.
I feel like only in Star Wars, with that kind of like it's that thing, like it's so good.
Well, it's like the and I'm blanking on the name of it, the ice cream maker. The
Camtono.
Right. Like you just kind of take a random thing and give it a lot more importance. This was also interesting too, because the Jawas aren't just scavenging from like wrecked ships, but they literally stole this off a Pike spice runner while it was refueling. So the Jawas are courageous little guys.
Well, if Tuskens hadn't come across Boba Fett and taken him captive, Jawas would have killed him, technically, or just stealing his armor and leaving him for dead. Like,
I totally figure that that was a little bit of foreshadowing to mention that the Pikes are on Tatooine and they stole from the Pikes. I don't think that'll be a plot point, but it's connecting to the fact that the Pikes are running spice on Tatooine. In fact, Pelly mentions
that. Yeah. And this was when we got that sequel trilogy connection, right?
Mm.
Okay, do tell, because I missed this one.
Yeah, and I got to remember how they're pronounced here, but she says that it's she's talking about how fast it's going to be, and just want to double check. Was it a 5-year? Was that right?
Faster than a 5-year.
Yeah, 5-year, right. Mm-hmm. It's the horse things from Last Jedi.
Oh.
She says you'll be faster than one of those, which I kind of laughed a little bit because I'm like, I hope so. That's a horse.
Yeah, I felt like that was probably
like your car's gonna go faster than a horse, like
just a way of speech, or
they're lightning quick. They are fast, but that was kind of cool.
They finish the ship and we get some other cool Easter eggs for episode 1. He takes the ship out for a spin, and it follows some of the same course of the pod racer race in episode 1. We also get to see Beggar's Canyon, which was cool to see. And then he kicks it into outer space, and we get to see the Rodian kid again. So apparently their vacation was done and they were leaving, and he's ogling the Naboo starfighter out the window. And then, of course, he gets pulled over by the New Republic patrol. Like, of course.
Yeah.
Disney owns everything. They got to get the rights to the Bad Boys, theme song. You know what I mean? That's too real world. But every time it happens, I'm just hearing it in my head. I'm like that. So.
There's a cool detail I saw online when he's in Beggar's Canyon. There's debris of like a guardrail. Like it's in the background, so you would never notice it. Yeah, there's debris of a guardrail, and it's the guardrail that Anakin blasted through his pod racer. Yeah,
I'll send you guys the link to the video. Oh man,
yeah,
cool.
It was pretty neat. The attention to detail.
Yeah, nothing gets by these guys. A couple other cool points. The New Republic pilot. I'm not sure if you guys recognized him, but he is Max Lloyd Jones. He's the body double for Luke Skywalker in season 2 of The Mandalorian, the finale. He was the body double. And then we get Paul Sung-Young Lee back, who is Captain Carson Teva. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, but he was also in The Mandalorian as well, being a New Republic patrol.
And Cara Dune just called him Blue, so
yeah,
maybe that's to make it easier. I don't know.
So they ultimately decide to let him off with a warning, but then start to ask too many questions, and Din shows the speediness of his new little starfighter. And then we get the quintessential comment on how it was when he lands, and hearing Din say that it was wizard was, like I said, was awesome, but so appropriate.
You could feel him rolling his eyes though too. Like it's clearly like, you know, kind of teasing like an old fashioned hip saying, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he would have been a kid at that time, you know, when that was one of the cool things to say. And then, of course, being the Naboo starfighter, being retro itself. Yeah, it fits. And then we get the kind of the final moments of the episode when Fennec Shand shows up, which I was expecting that. I mean, you know, I think with the previous chapter of the Book of Boba Fett, it was sort of implied that Din was going to be some of the muscle that was hired. So we get Din offering to help Boba Fett on the house because of Boba Fett's helping him rescue Grogu back in the previous season of The Mandalorian. So we have 2 episodes left of the Book of Boba Fett. So I'm expecting them to focus heavily now on this war with the Pikes and the aftermath.
Remember, he does say he has to visit a little friend first.
Well, so that's a question that I would throw to you guys.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Mike, what do you think?
I think this is just my guess. I think that we are gonna see Mando again, and I think Grogu will be with him, and it'll be some big twist that'll matter for the plot. But we won't get the full sort of fill-in-the-blank backstory of what happened and why he's back with him until season 3 of Mando. I think that's a neat way to build up anticipation for it. Because I personally, I think they're very clearly, like, with all the talk, you know, with him in the armor about attachment, you know, and how that's eschewed by Jedi. And it's like, I feel like it's as true for Grogu as it is for him. And I think we're going to find that Luke can't really train him. You know, he taught him some things, maybe, but it's not really his path after all. Because we all want that, first of all, and they know that. And I keep saying this, I've been saying this from the beginning, there is no way that he is a casualty of Kylo Ren's, like, rampage.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no way.
No.
And his species develops slower, so he would, in theory, still be like a little kid at that point, like a youngling, you know? So they would never do that in a million. They're not going to kill the cash cow, just on a practical level. But in the story, it wouldn't make sense for the story. I think we're seeing a clear, something big is moving in the direction of what's going on with the Mandalorians and getting their planet back. And I think Grogu's a Mandalorian foundling, you know? I think that's his path. That's my guess.
So maybe he'll be like Tar Vizsla, where he's a Mandalorian Jedi.
A little bit of both. Yeah.
I have to agree with that. I guess I wasn't expecting. I'm not expecting Grogu to show up in the next episode with Mando, but actually what you said totally makes sense. I expect we'll see the reunion between Grogu and Din in Mandalorian season 3, not these next 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's hard. I thought about this a lot, and you know, I think if there's these shows and Favreau and Filoni have proved anything, is that when they tease something at the end of an episode, you're gonna see it in the next episode.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's gonna be all up in your face. So I am still leaning towards that we see both of them. If we don't end up seeing Grogu, I would imagine it would be a situation where something is preventing Din from seeing him. And he'll have to take a detour, and then it'll just be a big tease. Maybe there'll be some sort of like confirmation that he's doing okay, and which is good enough for Din. But if we don't end up seeing Grogu on screen, I think it'll be a situation where it's like, okay, I'll try to see him next time. I mean, that's my guess. I don't imagine that they end the episode with such a big tease like that and not let us see it through. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But I do think they'll focus more on the Boba Fett side of the story quicker, and kind of resolve the Mando part of it, you know, in the beginning.
I'm in the middle. I definitely concede to both of those viewpoints. And I'm hoping that we don't get too much more of Din's story in the Book of Boba Fett, just because it is Boba's, book. And I'm hoping for a very big ending to this season. So I'm wondering what other people is he going to have on his side in terms of muscle, quote unquote, to fight this war against the Pikes. Because I do want to see more of that. But I mean, I would love to see like a young Kylo Ren too. That would be cool. So I'm up for a lot of things right now.
Well, and maybe we're going to see, I know that this has been a potential and a hope even, is Fennec has met Omega before. So perhaps Omega will be another form of muscle that is able to be drawn in. I mean, because at least with the other seasons, there's always been kind of those surprise moments later on in the season. And with 2 episodes left, I expect them to do something that is awesome and big, and bringing in Omega could be a really fun way to accomplish that.
Well, we know she was an excellent shot 30 years ago at this point, so she's probably a lot better now.
Wow, that would look so cool on live action. Her weapon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the crow or the bow and arrow, the arrow, bow and arrow, whatever
it is,
that.
Yeah. She'll be live action at some point for sure.
Yeah. Well, and we've still got season 2 of the Bad Batch coming too, so we'll get to see more of her there, if she doesn't show up in the Book of Boba Fett. But yeah, there's still time left, so we'll see. Any other thoughts on the episode as a whole before we wrap things up?
The music was amazing. It was such a treat to hear both shows' themes come together and be woven so beautifully together by Ludwig Göransson. So I'm definitely looking forward to hearing the just music by itself whenever it gets released. I'll probably listen to it a lot. It was great.
I firmly believe with this opportunity that Favreau and I'd say especially Filoni, because of his connection to the lore, the Mando lore. Sorry, I had to do it, and and the community, right? Because his connection to the community of the Mandalorian fans. I don't believe for a second that the team and Favreau working with him is going to leave Boba Fett as a crime lord on Tatooine. I don't think that's the end of this. I think this is all a stepping stone to him getting, because he's a leader. He wants to be this father figure, this connection with his father, but he's different, and has sort of a. I think he's playing it close to the chest, and he's trying to be all humble and everything. But I think he's meant for more, and I think he's going to be the Mandalore. I don't think you tease, the connection to the holiday special dinosaur thing, and the Rancor, and then and by the way, there's a prophecy that a mythosaur will rise, and I'm like, come on, like this is, because what would possibly make, like you said at the beginning, Father, that's what I was just going to mention, is just for everybody that's been sharpshooting the show from the get-go, I'm like, God, let's watch it. Geez, it's just, I'm excited. There's a bunch of ways they could take it that would really make me happy, but I think that would be the most ambitious and make the most sense in a lot of ways. Because it's not going to be Din. That's not his personality. I think he wants to be reunited with his little buddy and go on bounty hunter adventures. And I want to watch as many seasons of that show as they'll make. Everybody does. So that's just my guess right now. We'll see.
Yeah. I think that Boba Fett has been very clearly angling towards a family kind of relationship. He had that with the Tuskens, and they were killed, but I'm still not convinced that all of them were killed. But yeah,
I think Bib was behind it, but that's a whole other thing. Because that would explain a lot.
It would. But yeah, to see him sort of as Mandalore, as kind of the head of a family would totally fit his personality. I'm
And what was his line? You can only get so far without a tribe. Didn't he say that? The tribe is because that's the Mandalorians are very tribal, you know.
Yeah, so I really hope that these next 2 episodes are just stellar. You know, I want the Book of Boba Fett to stand on its own without needing Din to sort of, you know, kind of make it acceptable by the fan community. Even though that's not really why you want to appease the fans, but you don't want to just bow to the fans' wishes either. I mean, you want to tell a good story. So I'm hoping that these next 2 episodes are just, you know, really, and I trust Favreau and Filoni, so I do not doubt this to happen at all. But I want it to be very clearly, you know, Boba Fett as the main going forward for these next 2 episodes. So I think that is all that we have time for this evening. So listeners, of course, we want to hear your thoughts on Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. And you can let us know your thoughts in various ways. You can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com. You can comment on our Facebook page at facebook.com/starquestmedia, or you can tweet at us, and we are on Twitter at SQPN. And so now, as always, we would like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including Jacob D, Jason D, Josh P, Leslie H, and Jeff V. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, make sure that you are subscribed to the show. You can find us in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. Just be sure to click that bell to get notifications of new episodes. And you can find all of our previous episodes by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. And we will be back next week as we will take a deeper look into Chapter 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. So until next time, Mike Creevy, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Thank you.
Angela Cialana, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks, it was great.
And Andrew Hermes, thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.